Ladies and gentlemen, friends of PISAI, on behalf of PISAI staff members and professors, I welcome you all to the third of the annual cycle of PISAI lectures. The topic of this evening lecture is very interesting. The oldest Qur'anic manuscript or manuscripts, and is held by a most prominent scholar in this field, Professor Alba Fedeli, who this morning has participated to a seminar addressed to PISAI students and faculty. Alba Fedeli is a research fellow at the Center of Religious Studies at Central European University in Budapest, where she is working on a research project on the transmission of early Quranic manuscripts by applying phylogenetics. She is academic assistant at the Ambrosiana Library in Milan and the honorary research fellow of the Institute of Textual Scholarship and Electronic Editing at the University of Birmingham, where she obtained a PhD degree in Theology and Religion with a dissertation on the Qur'anic manuscripts of the Mingana Collection using the tools of digital philology. During her PhD research, she worked on the so-called Birmingham Qur'ān at the Mingana-Lewis palimpsest. The library of the University of Birmingham had kept some rare fragments of the Qur'an, part of the Alphonse Mingana Collection. Research made by Alba Fedeli on the ancient Arabic calligraphy and the carbon-14 had revealed that one of these fragments may date back to a period between 568 and 645 BC. She has been involved in various projects on Qur'anic manuscripts, such as the Yemeni mission to digitize manuscripts from Dar al-Makhtouta in 2006 and 2007, and the survey of the manuscripts discovered in the Great Mosque of Sana'a in 2007. Her publications reflect her research interests in early Quranic manuscripts, which she started to conduct during her collaboration with the late Professor Sergio Noia Noseda. We are very grateful to Alba for her kindness in accepting to talk to us today about this important and interesting topic. And now, Alba, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for this very kind introduction. If you're here to attend this presentation, you might have seen this picture publicizing the event, and you might have heard about the discovery of the oldest Quranic manuscript in Birmingham. Here you can see the two leaves, the famous Birmingham Qur'ān, on public display last October in Birmingham. And well, I'm supposed to be the lady who stirred up the media frenzy, so as someone told. And I like this picture from The Guardian because according to them, I said, I prefer to stay among my books and away from people. Alba Fedeli, the Italian scholar who knew at a glance the significance of the list, said, the books are not so difficult. So maybe the organizers wanted to make me feeling comfortable between all these books. But despite what you might have heard, I didn't say that. And of course, I'm very, very happy to be here with you and to talk about this subject and to share with you my research on these early Quranic manuscripts. And of course, I would like to thank PISAI and the organizers for this kind of invitation. But I never said that. I just thought that I don't understand why scholars and people and journalists are saying such things about the manuscript, because the manuscript is there and it's very easy to say what you can see in the manuscript itself. Okay, I've prepared this tour for you about the story of the discovery of the oldest Quranic manuscript, and I hope you will enjoy this story. A laboratory in Oxford had dated the manuscript, and the name of the manuscript is Mingana Islamic Arabic 1572a. This is the name from the Mingana Collection in Birmingham, collected by Alphonse Mingana, thanks to the economic support of Edward Cadbury and his philanthropic project of giving a library to the city of Birmingham. And the laboratory in Oxford dated the parchment between 568 to 645 Common Era, with 95% probability. And the reception of the Birmingham Qur'ān phenomenon, because now the manuscript is known as the Birmingham Qur'ān, which is quite imprecise, is something unique, something never before experienced. And the message of the headlines of the BBC announcement was oldest Qur'an fragments found in Birmingham University, and what may be the world's oldest fragments of the Qur'an have been found by the University of Birmingham. But this announcement does not correspond to and is not substantiated by the statements about the fact that the Birmingham Qur'an is the oldest one. In fact, the article written by the journalist of the BBC is based upon the related video and some interviews given by scholars and librarians at the library of the University of Birmingham. So if you read the text of the article of the journalist, you can read among the earliest in existence, one of the oldest fragments of the Quran in the world, so old, one of the oldest fragments of the Quran in the whole world, among the very oldest surviving texts of the Quran, and the manuscript becomes one of the oldest known fragments of the Quran. This makes it impossible to say that any is definitely the oldest, and again, among the very oldest. There is nothing else in the article itself, nothing else based and said by scholars and librarians from the University of Birmingham. But of course, despite the absence of declaration about the fact that this is the oldest Quranic manuscript, the object has been received all over the world as it appears in the headlines. I mean, the oldest fragments of the Quran. So all media, blogs, newspaper, broadcasting, they all repeated those headlines, the oldest Quranic manuscript. Moreover, the announcement transformed the manuscript in a new discovered manuscript, an unknown manuscript that had been discovered. The reception of the press release about the C14 analysis, of course, the analyses were new. The results were new. But the reception of the press release of this analysis and the significance of the manuscript transferred the newness of the results to the object itself, which was received as a discovered manuscript. And the journalist wrote, remained unrecognized in the university library for almost a century. I just started to analyze the perceived impact of the press release of the Mingana-Lewis, and I would like to mention just a few points regarding the Birmingham phenomenon from a sociological and historical point of view. In fact, the Birmingham press release, although unique with it 150 million views, so 150 million in the first days, and with the reaction it generated, can be compared with previous cases in order to understand its peculiarities. So, are there previous cases of such an impact about Quranic manuscript studies? Yes, indeed. The Birmingham Qur'ān has been the result of the new technologies and new participatory practices through social media, mainly through social media, even at the academic level. As social scholars, and social scholars play a very important role in this situation. So, indeed, the Birmingham Qur'an phenomenon is the result of the new technologies. But it can be compared with previous cases. In November 2014, so about 1 year, 1 year before the Birmingham Qur'an, the Tübingen University announced the results of the radiocarbon analysis of a manuscript held in their library. The analysis performed by a laboratory in Zurich dated the Tübingen manuscript to a quite narrow range, that is the period between 649 to 675 Common Era, again with 95% probability. The web community repeated the information from Tübingen University press release, which was reported extensively on numerous websites and transformed into the discovery of a copy of the Quranic text that, again, may be the oldest in the world, in a sort of competition among institutions that hold or may hold, and also competition between scholars who study or identify the oldest Quranic manuscript in the world. Moreover, this competition led to the inevitable comparison with the famous Sana palimpsest, as we read in the blogs about the Tübingen manuscript. The Tübingen manuscript script cannot be narrowed down further than between 649 to 675. In 1902, Mrs. Lewis edited a partial edition of a few Quranic leaves. This was the first edition of a Quranic manuscript, the Cambridge palimpsest. In the first edition, the 1902 edition, Mrs. Lewis chose to edit its text, reporting just the lines at the top and bottom of each half page. She explained her decision because of the fragile condition of the parchment, as she was using a chemical compound for reading the erased writing. But she wrote, "I was also prepossessed by the belief that all copies of the Qur'an are in duty bound to be exactly like. The same causes must have influenced all my Arabic friends and all Oriental readers of number 11 Studia Sinaitica, for no suggestion has ever been made to me." But in which tradition can we place this first edition, 1902 and then 1914? Quranic manuscript studies were cultivated in Europe as part of a tradition of Quranic textual history, and the founder of this interest is Theodor Noldeke, with his De Origine, so the beginnings of the Quranic text, published in 1856. And European scholars began to explore the sources of the written transmission of the Quranic text as soon as trading in Quranic manuscript between the Middle East and European countries and libraries started. So before the trading in Quranic manuscript, there was no interest and no possibility of studying Quranic manuscripts. After the first steps in the study of the early Quranic manuscript in the mid-19th century, which were characterized by a paleographical approach, so by an attention to the script of the manuscript, The beginning of Quranic manuscript studies was marked by Michele Amari and Theodore Nordeke, associated by the prize awarded by the French Academy in 1859 for the critical history of the Quranic text. At the beginning of the 20th century, the philological approach, rather than the paleographical descript approach, the philological approach to the study of the Quranic text and the possibility of studying the manuscript text by means of photographs led Gotthelf Beckstresser to plan his project to collect the critical apparatus of the Quranic text from manuscript data in comparison with the result of the emergent field of the study of the Qira'at, the variants tradition undertaken by scholars such as Arthur Jeffrey. And the idea of creating a database from the manuscript evidence by collecting photographs was apparently interrupted by the Second World War and the supposed destruction of Bergstresser archive during bombing. At the beginning of the 21st century, so just a few years ago, this archive of manuscript photographs collected from all the libraries in Europe and Middle East turned out to be in the hands of Anton Spitaler, who died in 2003. When he died, he left the photographs archive to his pupil, Angelika Neubert. And this, of course, was the beginning, the starting point for planning a continuation of these studies from Bergstresser, based in Berlin. So this was the beginning of the Corpus Quranicum project, running since 2004. But I like to remember also the project started by my late professor and mentor, Sergio Nozeta, in cooperation with François de Roche. And the idea of Sergio Nozeta was to continue the plan of Bergstresser in collecting photographs and in publishing photograph facsimiles manuscript of this early manuscript in order to have photographs and transcriptions. So, after my first studies with Sergio Noia, when he died, I moved to Birmingham for studying the early Quranic manuscript of the Mingana Collection, after having traced the presence of the fragment once belonging to Mrs. Lewis palimpsest, and after having traced the similarities between a part of the Birmingham manuscript and fragments that I had seen previously in St. Petersburg and Doha. So there in Birmingham, I've been involved in the Birmingham Qur'ān phenomenon as the person who, by chance, discovered the manuscript. In fact, the newness of the manuscript, as perceived by media, required the discovery. Of course, if the manuscript is new, it has been discovered. And of course, the discovery of the Birmingham Qur'ān has been presented has something happened by chance. The transposition of the newness category from the radiometric results, the analysis of the from the carbon-14 analysis, so they were transposed to the discovered object, and this, of course, has involved and the creation of a person who had discovered the manuscript. So in this dynamic, the discoverer, I am the discoverer, and initially, I've been for a few hours in the BBC announcement, I was just a nameless PhD student, just a PhD student. And of course, a PhD student who by chance discovered the manuscript. So for example, they wrote leaves spotted by a PhD student, leaves that were discovered by chance, or a PhD student stumbled upon the oldest Quranic manuscript, and again a PhD student noticed the difference in the writing. So the words of the Huffington Post are more interesting, and this is my favorite article. So they wrote, a PhD student who stumbled upon several ancient pieces of paper, hidden in another book, may have inadvertently discovered pages from the world's oldest Qur'an, researchers at the University of Birmingham, England, announced Wednesday. So, of course, by chance, I stumbled upon the paper. Several, there are 2 leaves. So, I don't think that it's correct to say that there are several. They are not on paper, so they are on parchment, and hidden in another book. Initially, when I arrived in Birmingham, the 2 leaves were bound together with other 7 leaves. And the 2 leaves were the first and the 7th leaf of this fragment. So 2 and 7. So if you want to hide the 2 leaves, you don't bound with just with other 7 leaves, and you don't put one of the 2 leaves as the first leaf. And again, inadvertently, so the discovery implies and requires no previous knowledge. And this is a topic, a stereotype about discoveries. No previous knowledge, by chance, and of course discovered. They like this word. And of course from the words of the Qur'an, I already told about this. And it's interesting, researchers at the University of Birmingham announced, which means the PhD student by chance discovered the manuscript, but just the researchers are able to. So I was not in charge of saying that they were old or not. So this is one of the interesting articles about the announcement, and I would say about how the other newspapers repeated and reported the news. I mean, I have a lot of episodes, but it's better to go on. So, did I discover the Birmingham Qur'an? And was it discovered by chance? It sounds odd to discover the manuscript, which was online since 2009 as a Qur'anic manuscript, Qur'anic fragment. The manuscript was online and is online in the virtual manuscript room of the University of Birmingham. And so if you want to have a look at the manuscript, you can find the high-resolution images there, you can download them, and so on. So I prefer to say that I rediscovered the manuscript. It's more appropriate, and maybe I discovered the story of the manuscript, as I identified the original 9-leaf manuscript as composed of 2 different fragments belonging to 2 different manuscripts. So, as I told you, when I was there the first time, there were 9 leaves, and so I recognized that 2 leaves were from one manuscript and the other 7 leaves from another manuscript. And as I was, inadvertently, I was in Paris, and I was in St. Petersburg and in Doha, by chance. I had nothing to do, so I was there. So I identified the 2 leaves as belonging to the same manuscript as a Paris fragment. So there are 16 leaves in Paris, and they were a single manuscript with the 2 leaves of Birmingham. So 16 and 2. Paris and Birmingham, 2 leaves. The 2 leaves of the BBC. I prefer to call it BBC Qur'an, it's very clear. And then the 7 leaves were matching 17 leaves that are in St. Petersburg and 4 leaves that are in Doha at the Museum of Islamic Art, coming from an anonymous private collector in Italy who sold It's a, I have no idea of the name. The four leaves were bought by the museum when it was opened in 2008. So it was quite unstudied, but the library, of course, was aware of the presence of this manuscript, and it was well stored. So, you know, journalists like to invent the story of, I was looking through the shelves and in some dusty boxes I saw these leaves. And so I rediscovered the object, the manuscript, and maybe I discovered the story of the manuscript, and I identified the two different fragments. So the Birmingham, Paris, Birmingham, St. Petersburg, and Doha. So, about the dating. In the Birmingham case, the radiocarbon results have been received, used, and presented in different ways, very different ways. Although the Oxford laboratory attributed the Birmingham Qur'an parchment to a range of years, because the results can give only a period of time. They will never give 1 year. So, although the laboratory, of course, gave a range of years between 568 to 645 with 95% probability, the interplay between scholars, social scholars, journalists, bloggers has acclaimed the text and not the parchment, in different ways. So, choosing a precise year. But choosing a precise year, I mean the 568 or 645, or even a middle point. Here is a middle point around 606, 607. So picked from the range given by the laboratory results was and is unfounded and arbitrary. Thus, the manuscript, the Birmingham Qur'an, was presented, perceived, and acclaimed as the oldest Quranic manuscript, as dated to 645 at the end of July. And just 1 month later, so at the end of August, you know, after the holidays, the same manuscript has been presented as dated to 568. But again, from a scientific point of view, I mean from the scientists, physics at the laboratory and in any laboratories doing such analysis, it's impossible, it's not correct to present 1 year. So it was not correct to say 645, and it was not correct to say 568. When you say the result, you can just use a period from 568 to 645. And here we have the same newspaper, the Daily Mail, and end of July, University of Birmingham says Qur'an parchment among oldest. So the same newspaper, end of August, the Birmingham Qur'an fragment that could shake Islam after carbon dating suggests it is older than the Prophet Muhammad, the same newspaper. And there were journalists who thought that they were two different manuscripts. So they didn't realize that it was the same manuscript with a range of years. And the media presented the last year, then the media presented the first year, but they didn't realize that it was the same manuscript. So I received call at the end of August. Could you tell me something about a new manuscript discovered and dated to before Muhammad. And I told you, no, it's the same manuscript and the same analysis done by the same laboratory. The media just are stressing the first year of the period. And the inexplicability and absence of previous knowledge in the discovery process, so my discovery process by chance, intertwined with the divorce between the manuscript analysis and the manuscript object. In fact, the great attention in the media about the artifact did not correspond and did not generate public attention to the artifact itself. In the media, I read about the use of golden and red ink in this manuscript, and the use of golden and red ink should be a proof of the known antiquity of the manuscript. But if you have a look at the manuscript, yes, there is red, but there is no golden ink. But when social scholars wanted to argue against or in favor of the dating, they used the presence of golden and red ink. And another interesting information I read is about the provenance of the manuscript. So according to a social scholar, the manuscript comes from Tunisia, from one of the 4 deposits of manuscript in Cairo, and the social scholar mentioned as a source of this information my work. And I never wrote about the provenance from Tunisia because there are proofs of the provenance from Fustat, from Cairo. So just to give an idea of the great attention about the results, but not so great attention for the object itself. I mean, if you want to argue about the dating, about the manuscript, as the manuscript is online, it would be better to have a look at the manuscript. So let's have a look at the object. When I say object, when I say manuscript, of course, I mean the 2 leaves and the 16 leaves in Paris, as they were a single, unique manuscript. So the direct observation of the object can tell us that. Okay, we have 2 and 16 leaves, but the structure of the leaves, there are some bifolia. So the structure can tell, and the sequence of the text can tell us that there were at least 32 leaves. So from the structure of the leaves, of the quires, we know that this was part of a larger fragment, at least 32 leaves. But we cannot say more than this. Probably they were 32 leaves, because I read also about the fact that this is the oldest complete copy of the Quran of about 200 leaves. But this is a fragment. We can say that it was a larger fragment, but we cannot say that it was an entire copy of 200 leaves. And then what about the script? We call this style, the script, Hijazi style. It's a label used by scholars in this field, and the main feature is the fact that the vertical lines are slanting. So this is the main feature. You can immediately recognize, this is the first sign, this slanting of vertical lines. And the 18 leaves we have were the work of a single scribe. So it was at least these 18 leaves were the work of a single scribe, And this scribe was was a master in this job. You can see, I hope you can see here. Can you see? Yes, here. You can see traces of rulings. So the scribe, before writing, planned the layout of the page, and this is a sign of attention, of mastery in doing the job. And the script is well proportioned, so the distance between letters, between words here, and so on, is very regular. And then another feature here, there are a few diacritics, a few strokes for marking different letters, and this was a controversial issue in discussing the antiquity of the manuscript, because someone wrote, someone still thinks that the presence of diacritics means a late manuscript, but the diacritics are in dated papyri. The first papyrus is dated to 22 Hijra, and this papyrus with the date written has diacritics, so we cannot use the argument of diacritics for saying that the manuscript is not so old. What else? There are two stages in the writing process. There is the first end, the single scribe who wrote all the 18 leaves, and then the first scribe, despite his master in writing and the proportionate script, but in a few points there are corrections done by the first scribe, and it's very clear in this example, because he started to write a word, but he stopped before finishing to write the word, and he corrected writing another word. So then there is also another, a later stage. The ink is brown, so the first scribe wrote using brown ink, but there is a second stage using black ink, and here you have an example of a correction done with black ink. And the Birmingham Qur'ān, the Birmingham leaves, have also a decoration in red ink for marking the chapter divisions, and this was another aspect for discussions in blogs about the red ink and the antiquity of the object. So the visual impression is that the red ink used for the decoration has been used also for tracing the first line after the decoration, mixed with brown ink, so we have a brownish reddish ink for writing the first line at the beginning of the following surah. And so if the decoration and the first line are simultaneous, so red, brown ink, if they are simultaneous in the writing process, this would be a sign of a later execution, so not so old manuscript. However, this is a visual impression because it's a risk in analyzing manuscripts and inks, color of inks. It's a risk to rely on our visual impression only because there is there are changes in the color of ink. So just a chemical analysis of the ink can tell if the red of the decoration is the same red of the first line. So without this chemical analysis, we cannot use the argument of the red decoration here for saying that the manuscript is or isn't old. And these are the other decorations between two following surahs in the Paris fragment, where we have only red, so no brownish reddish ink for the beginning. And here you can see the Paris fragment with exactly the same decoration of the Birmingham leaves. So, can the analysis of the object tell something about the dating? And the dating proposed by the Oxford Laboratory is an absolute dating. So, of course, they gave a range, but it's an absolute dating. While before the possibility of using C14 analysis, the only proposed way for dating this early undated manuscript was the comparison with the early dated papyri. So it was a relative chronology. So we can compare early manuscript with no date and early papyri with a date, and on the basis of the script we can suggest a dating for the manuscript. So the scholar who firstly proposed a dating for this manuscript is Roman, and he wrote this famous article in 1958. And even after Roman, of course, until today, the main way for dating, for proposing, for suggesting a dating was the analysis of the script and the comparison with similar contemporary documents, dated documents. And here you have an example, not very clear, of a papyrus dated 22, so 642. Because it's written date, as it is an official document. But are there, again the same question, are there elements in the text for saying something about the dating? Of course, a relative dating, not a precise year. On the basis of the analysis of the text, examples like this. So when the scribe started to write a word and stopped in the middle of the word before finishing to write it. And this is a sign of a copy from a written exemplar. It's not a sign of a writing from memory or a writing from listening. Even in other textual traditions, this has been explained as part of a writing process of a scribe looking at a written exemplar and copying the text. So, if it was copied from an exemplar, from a logical point of view, the copy is the oldest, or at least is older than the manuscript. So from a logical point of view, we cannot say that this is the oldest Quranic manuscript, because we can assume that there was a previous copy, written copy. And then there are other features in the manuscript, in the text. Other features related to the orthography of the text, and these are elements which reveal uncertainty in the orthography. And this is another element we can use the uncertainty of the orthography, at least for saying that the text was not, that there was a space, there was room for, there was not yet a rule imposed for the writing of the text, or we can say that in these cases the scribe is expressing his linguistic competence, and this linguistic competence can be compared with the linguistic competence of the early dated papyri. So again, we can compare with contemporary objects. And again, here an example I already shown this morning. The use of the infinitive rather than the subjunctive is again a sign of the linguistic competence of the scribe. And again, these aspects can be compared with a contemporary dated document. I mean, dated and so contemporary. And in these 18 leaves, we have some readings, particular readings, I mean particular in the sense that they are characteristic of this manuscript, only of this manuscript, and we have readings related to phonetics, so 45 readings related to phonetics, different than the readings in the starting Qur'anic text, 208 readings related to orthography, 13 for morphology, 20 for syntax, 12 for lexicon, and there are 15 mechanical errors, which can be due to the copy from a written exemplar, and there are also 8, at least for me, illegible readings. And so, what can we say about these, all these readings? I mean, what is the importance, the significance of this manuscript and the importance of these readings? Well, I read one of the interesting articles I read after the BBC announcement is this article written about the importance of this manuscript, the variant readings, in the context of debate on Islamic origins. But I think that before putting the manuscript in the context of debate on Islamic origins, it would be better to put the manuscript, the 18 leaves, in the context of other manuscripts. So I think that it's better to study all the available early manuscripts, and then you can use the results, the scholars can use the results of this larger database of information about early Quranic manuscripts. And this is the work I am doing. The work I'm doing is the comprehension and the possible explanation of the connections between manuscripts. Because it's a nonsense to use just these techniques for saying something about such a big subject, when we can use a larger collection of available manuscripts. And for tracing the connections, the relationship between manuscripts, one of the possibilities is the use of phylogenetic software developed for analysis of DNA sequence, because it seems that the changes in DNA sequence had similar patterns to changes in manuscript. And the field is very recent, 15, 20 years, no more. But it has already been tested and used in other written traditions, and so I'm trying to use it with the early undated Quranic manuscripts. Thank you.